My name is Patrice Berry. I live in Oakland next to Fruitvale Elementary. Um, I've been in Oakland for the last 11 years, and I'm running for school board primarily because of my own sort of personal connection to education. I believe that every child deserves the opportunity to experience the power of learning and education. And I personally went to public schools until I went on to college. And I've been talking to others about how big of a shame I think it is that 35 plus years after I started school, I'm still battling against the same education injustice I was fighting when I was a child. I grew up in a pretty segregated town, so it was normal for me to see Confederate flags on porches and trucks. It was normal for me to experience and witness me and other Black and Latino students shuffled into less resource classes. But I had a mom who wanted more for me and my siblings, and she was always at our schools fighting for us. And I learned how to elbow my way into honors and AP classes from my mom. And I also learned from my mom that it wasn't enough for me to get into this or that special program, that we had to get the system to really serve all of us. So if I got a seat, I pulled my friends in too. And I feel like I've been fighting for education justice, for equity in education ever since. And I feel very lucky that I've been able to build a career as an educator and a policy advocate, that I've had the privilege of launching initiatives and programs, one of which is serving hundreds of thousands of students across the state. And I feel like I'm running for school board because this is a part of my path, building a future where all our kids and our teachers feel valued in our schools, where students learn to read early and feel the confidence and empowerment that comes with early literacy. I'm running to build a future where, you know, every single high school graduate has an opportunity to move on to college or some other post-secondary education program or a job, and all of our students are thriving. I've seen education change lives, and I've experienced it firsthand, and I'm running to make that possible, not just for my two children, but for all of Oakland's children.
Thank you.
I asked the last question.
Oh, it's me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, yeah, we have a couple of questions. We just each kind of take turns to ask. So the first one is related to budget, and so OUSD is facing a budget shortfall, and to make matters worse, OUSD student enrollment is continuing to decline for the 6th year straight.
Yeah.
So Oakland's operating, far more schools than similarly sized districts, and it's leading to inadequate resources to support the open schools. So the question is, what actions would you take to address these enrollment and budget challenges?
Well, first, I want to acknowledge that declining enrollment and some of our fiscal challenges are related. So I'll tackle budget first. I think that it's really important for me as a school board member to really understand what the vision for education at OUSD is, and where there needs to be clarity, or for us to strengthen that vision, to work with my colleagues on that, because every decision that we make should be based on what we imagine for OUSD. I think once we have alignment on a vision for education and learning at OUSD, then it's really important for us to develop a framework that we can use to make decisions that align all of our actions to the vision that we have. Part of that vision should include the role we want charter schools to play in our district, the role we want community schools to play in our district, and the kind of partnerships and relationships we want to have with community-based organizations, with the city of Oakland, with the mayor's office, with other stakeholders who have a stake and some influence on the education of our students. I think as far as declining enrollment is concerned, it's really important that we understand why. students and families and caregivers are leaving the school district. And so one of the things I'm really excited about doing is partnering with our colleagues to really do a landscape analysis of the departures. Where are our students going, and for what reasons are our students leaving? And when we have some of that data, using that data to inform future action. If students are leaving because there aren't enough ELL services or special education services, if students are leaving because they don't feel safe in our classrooms, that should inform or shape the kind of maneuvers we make in order to keep students in our classrooms. I imagine that some of the reasons why students and families are leaving is because they don't feel like they're being served. You know, people stay where they feel like they're being served. And so it's really important for us to really understand how we can better serve students in Oakland in order to address declining enrollment.
Great. Yeah, I'm going to jump to the third one. So what are things that the district needs to do in order to improve its outcomes in math and literacy? Additionally, how can OUSD close the achievement gap among Black and Brown students?
I'm probably going to say this a lot, but I think the first thing is making sure we understand what's going on. So one of the things I'm excited about doing in District 5, but hopefully working with my colleagues to do it across the district, is to really get inside our schools and understand what's going on. What programs and services are being offered on each campus? Who is being served by each of those programs and services? And what kinds of outcomes are we seeing? Are there best practices that we can share across the district? Are there federal and state funding opportunities for us to invest in innovation or invest in scaling some of those best practices across the district? And then also encouraging, perhaps by way of the board's teaching and learning committee, encourage sort of a learning community, not just among OUSD schools, but across all schools, including our charter schools. Are there ways that we can make sure that our educators and our staff have an opportunity to build and learn from one another? I think that one of the things that I'm excited about exploring is how we can invest in dual language. There are a lot of schools, not a lot, but a majority of the schools offering dual language happen to be in my district. And so I'm curious about how that might improve the rates of literacy if we pay attention to some of the programs that are serving some of our students really well. I am excited about exploring what the science of reading might look like if we expand that in Oakland, because studies show that that is an effective literacy model, and that it sustains literacy across age. So if students are learning to read through some of those methods in third grade, that they sustain their literacy throughout their early education. So I think, again, just to repeat what I said, is just learning about what's working in Oakland, what some of the gaps are, and building a plan and a model around, you know, how we can expand best practices, but also fill the gaps.
Patrice, what would you consider to be one of your bigger gaps or weaknesses coming into this role, and how do you plan on addressing that?
Unfortunately, I've thought about this quite a bit. One of the things that I regret about the prospect of serving on the board is that I haven't been in Oakland for 30 years. I know what context can contribute to leadership and to relationships. And I have been working my butt off since I moved in Oakland to root myself here, to build relationships and to build context and to maintain curiosity in every aspect of the work that I've been doing since I got here. So that's one of the things that I plan to continue to do as a board member. I also think that one of my gaps is that my 7-year-old daughter does not attend an OUSD school. So I can be transparent about that. My daughter started school when she was 3 years old. And before she moved into the school or learning community that she's in now, we were very concerned. She was the only Black child in her class. She was shrinking into a shell of herself, and we felt like we were losing our child. So we did a bunch of research in the middle of our stress to find a school campus for my daughter. And we found a school called Pear Tree Community School, founded by a Black woman, a former OUSD teacher. She was a former, OUSD principal. She really gets public education, but she really gets learning and school culture and climate and what that means to education. And she's built this really rich, diverse community where there's a ton of cultural, multicultural solidarity, where students are culturally rooted, where there is space to pay attention to the whole child, where there is freedom for students to sort of explore. And all of that is what my child needed. And she's going into second grade right now, and she's reading on a fourth grade level. She's going into second grade, and she sprints into the school building, and she complains, sometimes cries, kicks and screams when I come to pick her up. And that's everything that I wanted when I was a child. And that's everything that my parents worked for. But I know that I do not have the context that Trishala, you have, or that Megan, you have, because your children have been in the school system. And I'm aware of that. And that's part of why I mentioned what I said earlier, which is that I try to approach everything that I've done in Oakland with a spirit of curiosity and humility. And I'm running for school board because my daughter actually deserves to be able to go to an OUSD school, the school that we live right next door to, that we can see from our porch, and get the kind of education that she's getting at Pear Tree.
Thank you.
I have to admit, I don't have children.
I know, I realized when I said that it was just Megan I was talking to.
It's all good, but I'm flattered.
What do you think is gonna be, the school board in Oakland can be very contentious, a lot of, there can be infighting and that type of thing. And you talk about, which I think is great, do your research first and kind of understand where the gaps are and that type of thing. How do you feel you'll be able to drive that, like collaborating with other school board members? Do you think they'll be on board with that?
I haven't met a school board member I'm not eager to work with. So I think there's one school board member I haven't had a one-on-one conversation with, but I feel like I could work with any of them. Part of the joy that I've experienced in education has been experiencing what happens when people who don't agree with one another get in a room and can find mutual sort of understanding. I don't think the work is easy. I'm not naive about the challenge, but I do know that it's possible, and I'm excited about making it so. Yeah, I think the work that I did in the mayor's office, establishing what is now known as the Oakland Post-Secondary Education and Workforce Success Collaborative, was, a practice in the science of, collaborative change, pulling together people who have different agendas and different opinions, but uniting us all on a singular mission, which is to make sure that every Oakland high school graduate leaves OUSD on a path to college, career, the life of their choice, and that we're doing everything in our power to support them. So yeah, I'm excited about it. Doing more of that.
Got it. Thank you.
Right. Any other follow-ups? We have 10 minutes.
Other than the questions we've asked you about so far, are there any other things you think of as priorities you want to undertake in a role on the school board?
Yes, if just in case my priorities aren't clear. So my very first priority is literacy and math. I think they're foundational. They unlock confidence, sense of empowerment, a connection to learning, self-efficacy. Studies are very clear on that. And our sort of performance in those two areas are abysmal, and it's criminal how much poorer they are among our Black, Latino, and Pacific Islander youth. And so I think we need to prioritize that in particular. My other priority is to make sure that all OUSD graduates leave on a path to college, career, the path of their choice. And if they don't have the certainty of that path, they at least can identify an adult in their life with whom they can continue to navigate and explore that. And I think in order for either of those things to be true, we have to sort of enable the conditions that create, that make those things possible. So I want to prioritize student well-being and teacher well-being, because nothing can happen if students aren't fed, if they don't have places to sleep at night, if they are worried about things at home, if they don't have mental health support and services. And so making sure that OUSD has deeper relationships with the surrounding community, with county, Alameda County, to ensure that services reach students so that they can feel whole when they reach our learning environments. Teachers need to be paid more. Students and teachers deserve to learn in spaces that look and feel good. And I think that we need facilities updates and improvements across the district. And I think in order for us to do any of that, we have to get our finances in order. We have to stabilize the budget. We know that there is a budget deficit that we can expect if nothing changes of over $50 million by 2027. And so we have an opportunity today to make sure that that doesn't happen, and that we don't just sort of like end up in the black, but that we sort of have enough revenue where we're thriving and can begin to innovate at OUSD again. I lost my way in describing my priorities because there was a reason why I wanted to share my priorities, but it was not in and of itself to share my priorities.
That was the question, is essentially what
Okay.
other priorities would you lead with? So yeah, I think that answers the question.
Patrice, I'm curious. I think I'm not trying to be a doomsday person, but we're about to see like the perfect storm happen in Oakland, where you're seeing a lot of the COVID relief funds disappear, which is why they're projecting these huge structural deficits going into fiscal year 26 and 27. Lots of hard decisions that have to get made in order to balance, to get to the place where you have a budget that facilitates thriving, commitments to increase teacher pay as for the last contract that was approved, and likely a superintendent search sometime in the next 4 years, right? I mean, unless Kyla just defies all expectations and sticks around forever, but likely just, a superintendent search. And as someone who has observed lots of superintendent searches across the country and has watched my friends who are superintendents, really good superintendents be incredibly thoughtful about where they're willing to go and where they're not willing to go. And I worry, my doomsday worry is that like in the next couple of years, you're going to see this board have to do make a lot of hard choices and decisions, and how you present in the next couple of years and how you work together in the next couple of years will also be how you are evaluated by recruiters and potential superintendent candidates. So like, if you were to step onto that board, like how would you change the perception of the OUSD board, especially in the context of the next couple of years and all the hard things you're gonna have to do?
Yeah. Oh, I don't even think that's doomsday. Firstly, I'm excited about the doom that you just painted. Not the doom itself, but like the opportunity to play a role in making sure we recruit the best superintendent who's excited about who Oakland is today and who Oakland will be under their leadership. And I mean, I think you all touched on this a little bit, but I think solidarity is really important. Like we have to get to a point as school board members where, despite the politics that we inherited and the politics that got us in the seats, right, that we are able to prioritize students. And I think that's going to be a labor of love with a great amount of persistence, not to be like super fluffy about it, but we're talking about relationships right now. And I think we actually have to pay attention to relationships. If that means we need to spend a weekend at a retreat and you know, woosah together, then we need to woosah together. But that actually has to be a priority, because you're absolutely right. No one's going to want to work with us if we don't have our stuff together. I do also think that there's an opportunity for us. You said it very clearly today. We're going to have to select the new superintendent, and this board will probably be the board to do it. I don't know why we would wait. We would wait to make that to start that work. I believe in narrative change, right? I work for an anti-policy organization that approaches policy advocacy with narrative change at the center. That, you know, policy is poverty is a policy choice, and in order to change policy, we have to change the narratives that people have about people living in poverty, about economic mobility. And I believe narrative change can also be a tool at OUSD. If there are ways that we can align on shared messaging, driven by a shared vision, I think that we could create a lot of change, you know, simply by focusing on relationships and narratives.
Amazing. I think we are at time, unless there's any final sort of follow-up questions.
We could always ask more questions.
Yeah.
We can keep Patrice for
Yeah.
another hour easily. But I think this is.
I mean,
good.
I would love that. Your questions are making me think, and I kind of want to get into a room and start doing the work right now, with all of you.
Right.
Save that energy, you're gonna need it.
Yeah. Yeah, say that. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. You have a good rest of your night, and yeah, get some rest.
Thank you. And thank you for the late interview. I appreciate it.